The quiet ride home on the bus in the dark after a basketball game from Champaign, like countless rides before. 8 Normal West Community High School junior varsity girls basketball players were on that bus on this particular crisp December night. 2 players did not ride, having left the game with family.
I have the girls sit in the midsection of the bus towards the back. Usually they're on their phones or doing some homework, sometimes late at night.
Everyone sitting pretty much where they normally do. Players in back, Coach Stephen Price and longtime volunteer Charlie Crabtree closer to the front. Charlie 3 seats behind bus driver Mark Kuhn, and Coach Price across the aisle, 1 seat behind Charlie.
Just kind of relax and think about what I need to do on the way home. I believe I talked to Coach O maybe the last 10-15 minutes of the bus ride.
I was on the phone with him, and all of a sudden he yelled something, and then it was dead silence, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know. It was just odd that he just saw it, but it wasn't disconnected. It was just silence.
Coach O and I were talking about the game and the girls that what they had done well, what we needed to work on in practice that day. I was discussing what he had done at practice. I just kind of looked up at the last second, saw some lights, and then very loud noise.
The silence that followed was deafening. Coach Corey Ostling couldn't let it go, pulling in his own driveway in Hudson. He decided to find the coach in person to make sure all was okay. Little did he know, Coach Price was now on the floor under the seats of a crushed bus, and within moments reaching for Charlie Crabtree's hand, knowing he'd also been gravely injured.
I just called out several of the girls' names just to hear a response from there, and then they did a great job of them taking care of each other to get out of the bus as quickly as possible. Because my leg was up against the seat in front of me, my femur was broken. I had my right foot broken, right hip. I have a plate, so my ulna was broken, and then several ribs on the left side. I was aware the entire time. I was actually had my right knee up against the back of the seat in front of me, and my left leg was in the aisle. So I was then kind of, after impact, kind of pushed down underneath the seats into the aisle.
Meanwhile, Coach Ostling had no sooner made the decision to locate Coach Price after that concerning call when his phone rang, and it was one of the players.
She was, very flustered, to be the word. So I just was trying to get from her, hey, and I think she just didn't want to say how bad it was. And so I just said, I need you to be specific with me. What kind of accident was it? And she said, we were on the bus, and it's bad, Coach. And I said, well, when you say bad, is everyone okay? And then she just paused and said, no, everyone's not okay.
He sped to where it happened, between Downs and Bloomington, about 2 miles from city limits. What he saw was a bus mangled by a semi, a huddle of teenage girls on the road, and no Coach Price, Charlie, or Mark.
I was on the phone with my wife when I pulled up on the scene, and I just said, honey, this is bad, so I'm not gonna be home. So I won't be home at least tonight, so.
No one expects someone to be coming down the interstate on the wrong side. It's hard to train and to prepare for just that set of circumstances.
Bus driver Mark Kuhn was actually a trainer who taught other drivers how to handle these kinds of situations. Prior to this semi-retirement position, he spent 40 years in the automotive industry, including ownership of an auto retail business. His memory of this crash?
The impact, you can't prepare anyone for that. And I was personally trapped in the bus for 2.5 hours.
Mark's split-second decision to stay on the road was an attempt to keep the young girls safe. Without seatbelts, he instinctively knew what would happen if he drove into the ditch.
I was very much familiar with what I could expect if I took the ditch. It was going to roll the bus, at least to its side. I was sure of that, and it would have hurt the girls. So I made a decision to stay on the highway and face this oncoming semi. The upper portion of my body was outside the bus, about 3 seats back from where it normally is. And I couldn't hold it up very well. I described there was anything I could do with the right hand. And the left hand was just trying to hold my body up outside the bus. I came out of it with a collapsed lung on the right side. a compound fracture with the right hand and arm, a compound fracture with the right leg, 12 fractured ribs, a broken back, fusion, 2 surgeries.
So I remember going to the hospital and just apologizing to the parents that were there, and I just felt like it was under my watch, you know, that they trust you. And to get from point A to point B safely, I know it wasn't my fault, but I still felt responsible.
I don't expect that I'll ever be the same person, but you learn how best to live on. And I'm in that learning process now.
One of the many reasons healing goes on, this family lost one of their own. Longtime, dearly loved, loyal volunteer Charlie Crabtree did not survive the crash.
Just that warm, boisterous laugh and talking when he'd come in the gym and, you know, girls, aren't you glad to see me today? And the girls would giggle and laugh, and we could be in the middle of a serious drill or just starting practice, and it just kind of set the tone.
Always someone that was trying to motivate the children to get their arms wrapped around the game. And his favorite saying was, "Eat 'em up," and that's what he meant.
He's not there, but he's in our hearts, and he's in a lot of positive, good memories, and that's what we'll continue to focus on and use that as strength, amongst other things.
His daughter, Nikki Segabiano, says her last contact with her father was shortly before the crash. They'd been texting about his willingness to help her pick out a new phone plan, deciding when.
His last words to me on his text were, "It's your call, baby girl." 20 minutes later, he's gone.
At times, she regrets having been asleep when that last text came in. At the same time, she feels it was special she was not, offering her a precious final memory of her dad she carries with her.
I wish I could have been awake and responded again and kept that conversation going, but I think it was meant to be those last words. He always called me baby girl, and those were his very last words to me.
Healing continues in many ways for this group, a now even more closely bonded family. How to achieve that? Different for everyone, but each one says savoring what remains is part of that process.
Dad passed doing what he loved with people he loved. If Dad had survived this accident and something happened to Coach, to Mark the driver, to any of the girls, he wouldn't have been able to live with himself. I really feel deep in my heart that whatever way he did it, it happened the way that it was supposed to.
I'll never be able to express enough gratitude for that player. To go through that at that age and to be able to think about, I need to call Coach and let him know what's going on. I mean, she's just gone through this horrific thing. She's confused. Again, they're kind of given different information from different sides about what's going to happen next. And so for her to call me, I just am forever grateful.
Coach Price was like a son to my dad.
So to know, like I said, that the people that he was with in his last moments were the people that he loved. And even though the girls weren't on the bus, they were still there. And I know that Coach Price holding his hand would have comforted him, and it definitely comforts us too.
Coach Price, to be pinned up against the seats and to be able to coach the girls in that moment on how to get off the bus and just to call 911 and his awareness is pretty special.
I don't regret it. I'm glad I made the decisions I made. It's just hard. I lost a good friend.